Mike Griffith, welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa. I hope all is well, man.
Oh, yeah, all is well.
Mike, before we get to this SEC championship game, as a reporter, you have been a beat reporter, am I overestimating, 25, 30 years? Am I right?
Yeah, about 20. Yeah, probably about 25 years. Yep.
All right. Let me talk about from the end of the regular season, this 72-hour period, 96 hours, because you've been at some programs where the coaches have been let go. What's it like for a reporter when you're having to chase all these different rumors and things breaking and you're having to follow coaching searches? Can you give us a little insight into that?
Well, I mean, it's difficult, and it's gotten more difficult with social media because there's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of basement blogging guys that are looking to draw attention to their website. They'll just kind of throw anything out there and, to try and get your attention. There's not a lot of accountability. There's no one to hold them accountable if they don't work for credible organizations. So more rumors than ever. And of course, if you're a reporter, you want to exhaust all those leads and all those rumors before you report. It's the age of the super agent, and the agents control some of the placed media. It's probably not hard to figure out what media members are attached to agents because they break all the stories on coaches. That's because they're getting fed those stories. And, those agents will often tell them to float the names of their clients out there for jobs that maybe they really aren't authentically, interested in, or vice versa. So it's probably more challenging than ever, but I think, reflecting back, an anecdote I'd share with you would be in 1997 when I was covering Alabama, and I was up in that football building that I was in yesterday, and I came up there after they had lost to Auburn, and all the coaches were in their offices that day, and Mike Dubose was at the end of the hallway in his office, and it was pretty clear there were going to be some guys getting fired. And, while I was ready to, report the news back then for the Mobile Register, it was tough. It was tough seeing Curly Hallman and Danny Pearman in their office, knowing that these guys were probably going to get fired. Now, Danny's gone on and had a great career. He's on the Clemson staff right now, and he'd probably tell you that was the best day of his life was getting off of that staff because he's gone on and done some great things with Dabo Swinney, and he did some great things at Virginia Tech as well. But back then, you knew those guys. You knew them well, the way you covered the team, and their lives were going to change. And, to the fans, it's just names. And, you see social media, the way they blast these guys and say horrible things about them. But these guys have sons and daughters and life and homes to pack up. And as a beat guy, you see that, and it just kind of makes you shake your head. And, people just don't realize, these are people too. These are people with feelings. These are people with lives, with children that are affected. And, to me, that's, as a beat guy, you see all that. You see how the sausage is made, I guess. So I don't know if that gives you any insight, Ryan, but that part hasn't changed.
Well, I mean, even, doing a 4-hour show here in Tuscaloosa each and every afternoon, I mean, this 72-hour period is about as crazy as you can, because it's literally, I can go on in the 2 o'clock hour and properly cite somebody, give them the credit, and then by 4 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, the story's changed. And it's like, it's crazy, being in this little bit of an environment. It may be the most hectic time of the year. But let's move on a little bit. Let me look at the Dogs here for a couple of minutes. When you look at this team, how would you describe Georgia to someone who has not watched them play a ton as you look at this football team, weakness and strengths, as you give us maybe a little bit of a preview of the Dogs in 2018?
Well, Georgia is a talented and determined team that's also very young. 68% of the roster is freshmen and sophomores. They got some veterans left over from last year that certainly remember how close they were in a national championship. Georgia had the best team in college football last year, Ryan. They won the SEC championship. They played that extra game before the playoff. They had to go through a very good Oklahoma team out in the Rose Bowl with Baker Mayfield and probably the best offense in college football. And, Georgia had to play that team. They didn't get to stay, close to home and play in the Sugar Bowl and play a watered-down Clemson. They had to go out there to the Rose Bowl and beat somebody. So, last year's Georgia team was the best team in college football. this year's Georgia team's not been the best team in college football. It's been a work in progress. It's a team that is susceptible in the front seven to a power run game. We saw that at LSU. It's a team with a really talented secondary. Kirby plays great scheme. They've given up the fewest plays of longer than 20 yards all year in the country. So they're not going to give you anything cheap. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see if Tua can work his magic deep into the Georgia secondary. Offensively, they've got a very good offensive line. The running backs are good, but not as good as last year. Jake Fromm is better, 1 year better, and I thought he was pretty efficient against Alabama last year. Receiving core, probably maybe a little bit better this year than last year. I know they lost their go-to guy, but this is a unit that's gotten better as the years progressed and had some young guys emerge. J.J. Holloman, number 9, a guy to keep an eye on. So I would say that the offense is probably slightly less potent because I think Michelle and Chubb were just that good. I would say that the defensive front seven is definitely a level off from where it was last year, but the secondary is better. I don't think you're going to see anybody break any assignments on deep passes from Tua this year, I'll tell you that.
What is the health of the offensive line? Because I know that's been a question mark at several key points of the season. What is the health of that offensive line going into this championship game?
Yeah, they're still banged up. You know, Ben Cleveland's less than 100%. We're not really sure, you know, if he'll start or how much he'll play, but he's their best run blocker, and he's been gone since September 22nd, essentially. He's played a little bit, but he hadn't been himself since he, you know, broke his leg against Missouri back there the third or fourth week of the season, whenever that was. Trey Hill's a true freshman. You know, has been playing guard, might be matched up against a top 5 draft pick this Saturday. So it is a very young line. When you look at, you know, left tackle Andrew Thomas is a sophomore, left guard Solomon Kinley, redshirt sophomore, Lamont Gilliard's senior center. But then I mentioned Trey Hill, you know, the right guard, true freshman. Of course, Big Isaiah over there, right tackle, is a redshirt freshman as well. So it's a young line, but it's a very good offensive line.
We're talking with Mike Griffith, SEC reporter, DawgNation.com. AJC, he was here in Tuscaloosa covering the University of Alabama on Saturday and also staying throughout the weekend and covered the press conference and practice. Mike Griffith, the guy that is no stranger to teams that Alabama's been matched up against. We were talking to him a couple of years ago with Tennessee, Michigan State. He's covered the SEC, understands what it takes. Let me ask you, as far as weaknesses on that team, if this team has a weakness, what is it for the Dogs?
If Georgia has a weakness?
Yeah, if Georgia has a weakness, what is it? Their biggest weakness?
Well, I mean, you know, as I said, the front seven. You know, this is something Nick Saban's going to want to exploit. I mean, he's going to want to run the football. And obviously, if they can run the ball successfully on first down, and you know, that sets up Tua in play action. And you know, 2nd and 5 is a bad place to be if you're Kirby. And so, you know, that's going to be something to look for early, is to see how effective that Alabama run game could be against Georgia, because that's going to set up everything else.
Mike, do you think this line's fair in Vegas at 13.5? I mean, do you think it's that big of a gap?
Well, I mean, if you look at what Alabama's done, I don't know how you could have it much less. I mean, they beat everybody by 21 points or more. You know, something that hasn't happened through 12 games since 1888. You know, this is arguably the most dominant Alabama football team in history. I think it's Nick Saban's best job. I think, you know, I had a guy call me yesterday on one of the award panels and said, "What do you think about the, you know, Coach of the Year?" I said, "I don't know how it couldn't be Nick Saban at this stage." You know, he's what he's done it's unprecedented, certainly in SEC history. I mean, no one else has done what Saban's done, and he's done it with coordinators that, you know, you kind of, you know, shake your head and shrug and go, okay, you know, what have these guys ever done before, and what are they going to do after? I mean, it's you know, it's not like he's got, you know, big name guys, you know, that are, you know, coordinating things. I mean, this is Nick Saban. This is the program. This is the process. I mean, this is the process taking over, dude. I mean, the names change. Listen, I think I could be a coordinator at Alabama and he'd still win a national championship. I mean, it is what it is. It's frightening when you look at how Saban's been able to win year in and year out with replaceable parts. I mean, and that's unprecedented. I mean, you're supposed to have continuity. So I think Nick Saban's the Coach of the Year.
Well, but he rarely ever gets that Coach of the Year. I mean, we're talking about the Bryant Award, and I don't think he's never won it while he's in Tuscaloosa. I know he won it at LSU, but he's never won the Coach Paul Bear Bryant Award with all the championship success that he's had here in Tuscaloosa. That's kind of crazy to me.
Sounds to me like it's time for a Nick Saban coaching award then.
Yeah, I mean, maybe could we count on you for $20 and we'll start the foundation here in Tuscaloosa?
Something tells me, looking at those facilities and judging by how well Alabama took care of me in the press box and at the media day, they don't need any money. I'll tell you, that's a Rolls Royce beat right there. If you're a beat writer for Alabama, you got a good life. I'm gonna tell you that setup there was so impressive, and the way they make the players available and split them up, and even Coach Saban now, he's got his routine down. He's gonna crack a joke or get mad at somebody every time out. It's going to be entertaining for all, and it's like I said, that's still when I covered Alabama in the '90s, it felt like college football heaven, and things haven't changed. If you're a reporter and you're looking for a story and you want to talk to newsmaker people that are going to make news and say exciting things, and do it at a place where they treat the media professional, Alabama's the place to do it.
Hey, Mike, final question. As you look at these two teams, when being the best in college football, we're going to be talking about a playoff ranking that's going to be coming out later today. A lot of talk here in Tuscaloosa, if this game is close, that Alabama's already punched their ticket to the playoffs. Do you believe that that is the case, and do you believe it's fair?
Well, you guys know I think you should have to win your league championship to make it into the college football playoff. This is why I don't like the college football committee, because it's politics, and ultimately the politics, you just follow the dollar signs, and the dollar signs will lead you back to the television networks. And the television networks are going to look at demographics, and they're going to look for ratings, and that's what this decision is going to come down to. So play the what-if game. Ask yourself if Alabama getting in or getting out would drive more ratings, or I guess it depends on who the other team is. Would they take Alabama losing in the SEC championship game over Ohio State winning the Big? Because let's face it, it's really not about the best four teams. It's really not about putting the teams in the order of who's best. Because if that were the case, Notre Dame would not be sitting where they're sitting. Let's just be real about it. Notre Dame is not one of the best four teams in college football. They're not. But they're undefeated, and they're Notre Dame. And you can gosh darn bet that they're going to be in there. UCF, well, you got the haves and the have-nots. And, they're not in there, but they're undefeated too. Notre Dame's not in a conference last time I checked. So I don't know, Ryan. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the process right now. And I'll trace that back to 2 weeks ago when I got on the conference call and I asked the guy running the show from Oregon there, from Nike U, I said, why is Michigan ranked ahead of Georgia? And his answer was because Michigan had the number one defense in the country. And I will rest my case right there.
Wow. Well, Mike, and I guess we could flip this, and I said it was the last question, but if Georgia loses by a close margin, could you not make the case that they're one of the best four teams in college football? I mean, let's say that this is a 28-24 game, and Alabama finds a way to win in the last few minutes in the fourth quarter. Could we not make a case that Georgia's one of the best four teams in college football and deserves a spot also?
You could make that case, but I don't think they would deserve a spot. If Georgia has two losses, they don't deserve to be in the playoff. Like I said, I think teams should have to win their conference championship game to be in the playoff, regardless of who they are. And if Georgia has two losses and Ohio State or Oklahoma has one and won their respective conference championship, then in my book they should be in. But, I mean, if you want to just start going on, like I said before, if we would just want to start going on who the best team is based on the eyeball test, we just pencil Alabama in every year. They could have two or three losses, and you can make the argument they're the best team with Dick Saban and all the five stars they've got. And I don't know. I've heard people tell me on Twitter, oh, well, we want the best four teams. Well, at some point, it's got to come down to you deserving it. And Alabama did not deserve to be in the playoff last year. They certainly didn't deserve to have a bye, which is what happened because they didn't have to play in a conference championship game. And Ohio State didn't deserve to be in the playoff the year before. But if you put it in the hands of people, politics are going to enter the equation, and mistakes are going to be made. And I expect that to happen again this year. And until you go back to the computers where there's a transparent formula and everybody knows the rules, the situation and the system's going to be manipulated. That's too bad.
But, Mike, wouldn't you say that the committee got it right, though? I mean, Alabama was able to – maybe the bye week helped.
No, I don't think they got it right. Alabama got a bye last year. Not only did they not have to win their conference championship game, they got to play one game less. And then on top of it, they got to play a watered-down Clemson instead of fly to the West Coast and play the best offense in college football. So, no, I don't think they got it right. And I don't think they got it right the year before when Ohio State was in, when they didn't win the Big Ten championship. I think it's wrong. If you're going to have a conference championship game, it needs to mean something.
Fair enough. Mike Griffith, 32. Mike Griffith, 32 on the Twitter account. SEC reporter, DawgNation.com, and the AJC covers the Georgia Bulldogs for DawgNation.com. Mike, I'll see you in Atlanta. Always appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate it, Ryan.